Right, you suggested that we do a imaginary song to give an example of how it would work. So I'm going to ask you, what's the title of the imaginary song?
I used to love you, but now I don't. It was a
Probably,
huge hit.
oh, it
It
was?
was a huge hit.
Okay, good.
It was top 10 all over the world.
How many writers were on
There were 2 writers on it.
it? Okay, and when was it written?
It was written in 1980.
And are both writers with the same publisher?
They are.
And do they own any of the publishing?
They own, yes, they own
They're
a
co-published.
co-published.
Each has a co-publish.
Right.
Did they sign the same single song agreement on the song?
They signed separate song agreements on the song,
Okay, good, good.
but they
Well-
were essentially the same.
For songs under 203A, if they had signed the same transfer, then a majority has to sign the termination notice. This isn't true for works prior to 1978. It's true for the on or after 78 songs. Okay, so if they each sign separate ones, then we're filing notice to get back that portion of the copyright, which is half for each of them, because they, in theory, own the other half through their co-pub, to get back that half. Was there assignment? They wrote the song when? What, 1980?
1980.
And when did they sign? Were they under term agreements at that time?
Yes.
Okay, so technically, the term agreement transferred the song to the publisher under their individual agreements. The date of creation would be important for that purpose, because let's say they had a 1979 term agreement. If we can establish the date of creation, then that becomes the date of transfer, technically.
The date of creation was in 1980.
Yeah, okay. So, and you said it was a big hit. When did it come out as the hit? When was
It
it?
came out in 1980.
Oh, okay, same year as it was written.
Yeah, so it was
Great.
written
So-
and came out at the same year.
So rather than think that we'll be able to terminate this 40 years from 1980 as a work that was published after more than 5 years later, we're going to know that because it was published the same year, we can get it back 35 years later. So the process, see, we assemble all this data, we get the copyright too, we need to have the copyright facts, so we get go to the Copyright Office or the publisher and accumulate what the date of the copyright and the copyright registration number and so forth. And we pull all this together into the notice. So there's a notice, and then I use an exhibit showing the songs, if there's multiple songs, and the date of their transfer, the date of the copyright, and so forth, to establish which part. And the notice has to say which part of the law the song is being terminated under. Is it being terminated under 203A, 304C, or 304D, which is another little aspect that I have to say I've yet to file a 304D, because it's for songs that, this is really technical, but it's for songs that were written and had when they changed the law, should have been out of their 56-year period, but found it rekindled. So they 304D covers
This is your
those.
generic big hit.
Okay, so we file whatever that date of transfer was in 1980. 35 years later, or excuse me, the date of publication. We're not working off the transfer. The transfer set up that we're under this aspect of the law, but the date of publication is the date that sets our termination date. 35 years, let's say it was April 1 of 1980. 35 years later, April 1 of 2015, the writer will regain ownership of that copyright. That means that if they notify the Harry Fox Agency, they notify BMI, then licensing from that point on will be done. The old publisher will not be representing the licensing. The licensing will be done by their publishing entity, whoever that is, if they themselves or want to give it to someone else, or want to give it back to the original publisher. And BMI or ASCAP, CSAC will start paying them the publisher's share that they didn't used to get for the performances. The real benefit here, once this is all in place, is that prior to that April 1st, 2015, that writer can only deal with the original grantee, the original publisher, if they want to make some new deal. but they could sell it back to them for a multiple of what it earns. That's usually how these things are priced. And so, you know, for a expenditure of, we'll say for this one song they spent $750 or $1,000 to file this thing, they might turn around and sell it back to the publisher on some multiple of the earnings. Let's say it still earned them $10,000 a year for that half publishing, or $7,000 for that half publishing, right. Put it somewhere between a 6 to a 14 multiple on that, and that might be what it was worth, and it was well worth doing. For a song in 1980, it will experience the length of copyright of life plus 70. So if both writers of the last, 70 years beyond the death of the last surviving writer. So if the last surviving writer lives until 2040, the copyright will go on for another 70 years to 2110, am I right about that? Okay. And so the question is, would you want to sell that right, knowing that that's going to extend that long? Or everyone's circumstance is different.
Sure.
So, but that would be the benefit, and that's how it would work. And I do it every day. I mean, I've got termination notices right now in every state. I've got every state of development. I've got them on the way to Washington, on the way to the publisher, and on the way to the writer to be signed, so all those steps can be taken. And they're, you know, it's something everyone should do, because why would you leave it on the table?
Right. Well, Louis, thanks an awful lot.
Yeah.
I think we've got a pretty good idea of why this is important and why people need to do it. And just let me say in closing that you are extremely, unbelievably thorough. Your work is master kind of stuff.
It's just a curse.
No, well, yeah, but if you're doing the work for me or anybody else, if that's a curse, give me more of it. So
I am not happy unless this stuff is all absolutely correct.
Well, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks an awful lot.
Sure.